Flexbox. Remember how difficult it is to vertically center stuff? All I'm doing is changing the box orient value. That is all that's happening. All I am doing is changing the box pack. Right? Yep, that's stretch. And that's all I'm doing. That's the old Flexbox model. These are the newer Flexbox properties. We use display now with flex and inline flex to create a flex container, and that is put on the parent element. And then you can align content and the values of some of these. Did I fill all these out? Flex. I gave the values for some of these, so this is a nice little resource. But basically, let me show you how it works. Here right now, I am saying these are numbered 1, 2, and 3 in order in the code. And I'm just saying make the number 1 the first one. WebKit order -1. And it should be 40%, and the other two should be 20%, right? They're flexing. So this one is going to be twice as big as the others. If I change it and make it 2, the second one is, oh, I made 3. My finger was on the wrong thing. So the third one is first. Do you see that? And basically, Flexbox is allowing you to lay out the page to change your columns without actually touching your HTML. It's basically going to allow you to do those faux columns, like you know how we can never make things the same height? This is fine, do it this way. Not that well supported yet, but it's getting there. Okay, then we have grid layout, which is also just IE. And basically, this is kind of going to be cool. It's basically, the way you define it is you create an ASCII grid. Like you say, basically, it's like a table, and in your CSS, you say, I want this to be AA and be twice across. And then in the next one, you say, I want it to be two columns high. So you basically virtually divide your page up into a table, and then you say how many cells and columns you want things to do. So you can have divide and create boxes. Unfortunately, it's not supported. It's only supported in IE, so I can't show it to you because I don't have IE on this browser. Then we have shaders, and everyone is just in love with this stuff, and I am so not. But then, of course, I don't use Instagram. I think Instagram is the most annoying thing on my Twitter feed, and I was so happy when they pulled it. And you can grayscale it. If I actually look at my page, you see how it's gray? And I can reset it back to color. And I can create a drop shadow, which we could do anyways, and we can make it sepia and make it look like it's old. I can reset it, and I can make it really bright or not so bright. I can contrast it. Wow, that's really ugly. I can rotate out the hues, so I can make it purple or green or whatever. I can invert it. I can saturate it. I don't think I can saturate it. No, let's reset and then saturate. And I can change the opacity with a shader, which I could have actually changed. I don't think this is making the full thing transparent, but I'm not 100% sure. You can animate these things and really annoy people. And you can stop it and make people happy. Okay. Other things you can do. I talked about the shadow DOM already twice, so I'm not going to go over it a third time, but that was cool. We have cursors. So now that we can do more Ajax-y things and dynamic stuff, we had all the old cursors, right? Resize, progress, weight, text, resize in that direction, the crosshair. We now have none, which is pretty amazing. I don't know why we didn't have that before. Alias, vertical text. So when you want to change column heights, change cell heights, context, copy, don't drop, not allowed. Column resize when you want to change a table column width. Row resize, all scroll, zoom in, zoom out. Just different cursors, that's nice. And the thing is, no reason not to use these. These aren't supported everywhere, but you were just using a cursor beforehand. Might as well use a nicer cursor when it's supported. Remember with CSS, if your browser doesn't understand a line of CSS, it ignores that one line and goes on to the next one. So you can just do cursor help, and then in the next line do cursor cell. And if it supports cell, it uses cell. If it doesn't support cell, it uses help. That's very easy to fall back. Then we have text overflow ellipses, and this is supported since IE6, but it was Firefox that was a straggler with only support coming in Firefox 7. But when you do overflow ellipses, this is what you get. You get these 3 dots. But for overflow ellipses to work, you actually need 3 properties, and these are required. You need text overflow ellipses, which is the duh, so that you get the ellipses. But you also need the white space no wrap and the overflow hidden. Because if you don't have the overflow hidden, it's default overflow visible, and it'll just show your text. And if you don't have the white space no wrap, it'll just do what this is doing, which is going on to the second line. So the third one only will have the ellipses. Make sense? There is no one right here with no wrap and overflow visible. Here we've broken the word supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. I actually had to look that up. This is spelled correctly, because that's very important. So that's just allowing breaking words, which if you put A in your code with a word wrap break word, that might be a good place, because links tend to be very long. Calc, we don't have support yet for this, but this is coming down the pipe, and this is awesome, where you can actually use calculations, kind of like you can do in last and set. But it will actually calculate the width of whatever, so you say 50% minus 1m. But since we have border box, it's not, or box size, and it's not as required now. But if you want a deeper intro to calc, there's a link right here. It's an article. Rem, I talked about rem earlier this morning, which is relative M unit. And so if you want to basically base things on, have pixels and rems be the exact same thing as, we'll have rems be the exact same thing as pixels. The correct value is 62.5. That was figured out by the YUI team a while ago. So that's one way of doing it, and then you can just say 1.3 rem and 13 pixels for the ones that don't understand it, and then you can just change this to 120 or like 15 pixels, and then increase the font size. Like if you're when I'm doing a presentation like this, sometimes I like to just increase the font size. I only have to change it in one location instead of throughout the whole page, because everything is based on relative M units, and this should actually be that. Okay, so here's an article on rem units, and here's an article on measurements, and this is actually in my blog, and this is in Jonathan Snook's blog. Okay, pointer events. I actually used this in this deck, and so that's why, there's so many properties, so I only wanted to point out a few. So the next two are ones that I use in this deck. Animated events, I did pointer events none. And that was so that if I move something onto my text, I could still edit my text behind it. So what pointer events none does is it basically says this element cannot receive a click event. Very good for animating. If you're putting snow, or someone said they were putting meteors on a page, put pointer events none on your meteors, especially if they're in front of something, because you don't want someone to not be able to click on the link because there's something flying through your page. WebKit user modify. So every page that we've been doing cut and paste on so far, in my content editable, I have WebKit user modify, read, write, plain text only. And the reason I have that is when you cut and paste something, or copy and paste something, there's a lot of extra characters that get put in there. Have you guys ever copied something from Word and tried to put it into Dreamweaver or something like that? And you're like, where did this crap come from? or even just doing it in a wiki. You're like, I did not put that in there. When you're using the WYSIWYG editor, it captures everything. So I was just doing CSS. I want plain CSS. I don't want any of the bolding or whatever. So I did read, write, plain text only. And so that's why when I pasted it, it worked. So that's what WebKit uses. Firefox uses read only, write only, and the really weird write only, which means like you can't read it, which I really don't know what that does, but that's just odd. So the point of these two, is that we've only touched a small amount of the CSS that there is, and what I've covered is the stuff that, as a developer, I use and can be used. There's so much stuff, like whether you can put a squiggly line underneath a link. There's a resource about that in this talk, but there was no reason to go over that for 15 minutes because it's just not that vitally important. And if it is to you, I'm really sorry for your boss. And if it is for your boss, change jobs. Because if your boss is going, I need squiggly lines everywhere, you're like, and I need therapy. So just realize that there's tons of stuff that we didn't go over. So I have books. This one's out, and it came out over a year ago, but it's still actually relevant, which I'm surprised. There is stuff that's not relevant, like it says animation is only for 2 browsers. Now it's supported in WebKit, IE10. But it does show you how to do animation, and it shows you all the selectors, and it shows you the forms. And then this should be coming out in about February. This came out in June, and I have a chapter in this book, but I'll just give you the free link to the talk. So it's just, if you prefer reading Killing Trees, you can buy the book. But it's based on, there's this site called, I can't remember what it's called. But it's basically, it has an advent calendar, so it's going on right now, and it's about performance. And so last year's advent calendar was printed into that book, but it was based on this talk right here. Which has a lot of the features that we were talking about. Like, remember the la 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 la? Remember when I said gradients kill your website, and I said that? That's what I meant. So it goes over some of those performance issues. So if you want to look at that talk, everything I have, everything I do, I open source. So feel free to you know, you can even present one of my decks at a talk if you feel like it. Just say that it was me that wrote it, and that's all I want. So we're going to end with a quiz. What properties are we using that we learned today?
Transform.
We're transforming.
Rotate.
We are rotating.
There's a skew.
There is no skew, I don't think, because I don't use skew. We're scaling. So the snowflakes, they're starting, they're all different sizes, first of all. So some have a width of like 10, 20, 30, and 40 pixels wide. But as they fall, they are actually growing by 20%. You can't really tell because it's subtle, and that's the whole point, is to make it subtle. But if you follow a snowflake from the top to the bottom, it doesn't actually do it in a straight line. And so what I did is I actually used a transform origin. So it's rotating once around itself, but around a point here. So when it goes down, it actually goes like this. What else did we learn today that's on this slide? What color is the sky?
Gradient.
Gradient. How do you think I made the snowflakes?
Transparency.
Content generation.
Oh, sorry.
They're gradients. So let me show you the gradient. Here's the gradient. I put 4 background images together. And then I put a border radius on it, and it made it spin. And this is the background, a simple gradient. So how do you think I told the snowflakes when to fall and how to fall? The snowflakes are actually this code up here. They're just a bunch of eyes. So I had no classes in them whatsoever. But I did say, nth of type 5, make it big, nth of type 5 plus 1, make it medium, and so on. Smaller and smaller. And then I delayed some of them based on a different number, 3n. Then I changed the opacity on some of them based on 7n. These are all prime numbers. And then I changed the timing function so some would go linear and some would go also based on a prime number. So structural selectors is how I did that. And the snowman. Snowman is a div class equals snowman, one div. How do you think I did that? It has 7 background images. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So 5 linear gradients, 2 radial gradients. And how did I do the nose?
Border radius triangle, or the border triangle.
I generated content with just one border showing, exactly. And what else is on there? I think that's good enough. You guys passed. Good job. So that's all I have for you. If you want to get in touch with me, best way is StelVW at Twitter. And if anyone wants to go for drinks, or you guys all headed home. You guys should be partying. This is over. You've been here doing this for 6 weeks.